Okay, 3, 2, and 1. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome. We are fictionally unstable because life is not dramatic enough. Real life's not dramatic enough.
Yeah.
Welcome to our first episode of our podcast dedicated to different series of books that we will be reading along
Mm-hmm.
and dissecting and feeling unstable about.
Yeah. And giving our unfiltered opinions about it.
Yes. One thing I do want to mention is I think we all collectively agreed that this isn't a podcast where we analyze every single detail of the book. Just think of it as sitting around hanging with your friends talking about what we just read, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
But to introduce ourselves, as this is our first episode, my name is Maciel.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jessica.
And welcome.
So to get
Yay.
started, we will want to say what was kind of the first book that got us into reading or what got us back into reading for our adult lives.
Yeah. Maciel, you want to start?
Sure. So for myself, growing up, I was always a very avid reader. I do remember going to the local library, Summerlin Library specifically, with my brothers and my dad weekly, actually. And whether I rented a book or I was just reading in the book, I always went into the kids section because I was like 4th grade, 5th grade. There's a specific series that got me, I would say, really into diving into just series in general, not just one-off books. It was called The Amazing Days of Abby Hayes. Talks about this girl she's just a schoolgirl that I think she was in middle school or she was in grade school, not kinder, but either 4th or 5th grade. And she wrote specifically in her journal with a purple pen. And the text was in purple, whenever she wrote in her journal.
Yeah.
My favorite color is purple. So it was a thing that I clicked with. And there's 21 books or something like that. But I would always read that. So that was something that got me interested in series. I do remember that.
Okay.
But as I got into high school and then, of course, my first few years of college, I was really dived into the dance world and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really have friends that read as much. So not that I stopped reading, but I didn't kind of just dive into books in general. And then I recently started picking up reading again. I think it was during COVID or a little bit before COVID. Still reading here and there, but really diving back into being I always have to have a book on me or I need to stop and read a book.
Yeah.
Was, what was it? Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us.
Okay.
Was the one that got me back into reading because I read it in a day. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I'm not going to give my rating of that book because we're not talking about it. But that's what got me back into reading as an adult. And then obviously finding other people to talk about because I get obsessive sometimes when I like things. And so here you guys are. Obsessed. Yeah. So that's me.
Oh, what's your favorite genre?
Oh, favorite genre is definitely thriller, mystery and thriller. But then I also really like rom-com. So not specifically romance. It has, I gotta laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. For me, I feel like the first book I really remember that I enjoyed reading because I hated reading in school was A Wrinkle in Time when I was in elementary school. I never watched the movie, actually. I should have watched the movie, but I didn't watch that. But that was my favorite book when I was younger. And series-wise, it was probably in 6th or 7th grade, was Twilight. 100%. I was obsessed with Twilight. And all my friends were reading it. So
every teenage girl's fantasy at the time.
Was. Yeah. I remember that was when movies were good. Went into the movie and it was crazy. But that was my first series that I got into. And then I feel genre-wise, majority of the books that I liked were always dystopian sci-fi. Okay. So Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner. But I feel as an adult, I like mystery and thriller. And then now, fantasy.
Yeah. In the fantasy world.
So for me, I was never really much of a book reader. I was more of a manga reader, manga anime reader. So I read a lot of those types of things. I read too many textbooks throughout high school and college to be I'm not reading more texts, So I got into reading recently, maybe about 2 years ago, as like to kind of escape from my job that I really hated at the time. And I was like, well, let me just give it a try. And I actually read a rom-com as my first one. It was called Seven X's, which is actually really funny. I recommend if you like rom-com. And then somehow ended up on Book Talk and saw things about ACOTAR, like if you know, you know, ACOTAR. And so I got into that series, and that's kind of how my book journey started. And here we are now.
And how our book journey got started.
And how our book journey got started. And my favorite genre obviously is fantasy, because why not?
So just so you all know, the fantasy comes from Jessica.
Yes.
So you will see more
100%.
fantasy coming from Jessica. However, we're not just going to be fantasy. We will dive into all different sorts of genres.
Yes.
But for now, it's the fantasy.
It's the fantasy.
And I'm not a fantasy girl, but I loved Fourth Wing. So who knows? Maybe I converted.
Yes.
I was never fantasy either. Like, I never wanted to read about like fairies or dragons. So I was like, oh, that's probably lame. That's not. But that's
Yeah. So as you can see, we are wearing our Rider Black, because for our first and our second episode, I believe, we're going to dive into the Empyrean series. So our first episode will be dedicated to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. And then the episode after that, we'll be talking a little bit more about Onyx Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the Flyers. So I wore brown socks specifically for them. I had black socks, but I said, you know what? They did well. They did well.
They did what they needed to do.
I'm wearing a blue undershirt to represent infantry, I guess. Sure.
No.
I'm wearing a purple bra.
You have a
that
hood.
Signifies
You have a
nothing.
hood.
Yeah.
You have a hood for the scribes.
For the scribes.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap for today's sneak peek episode. We hope you enjoyed this little taste of what's to come. Whether you're a fan of books, TV, movies, we have a lot more in store for you that we're so excited to dive deeper into for our future episodes.
And hey, we're just getting started, so be sure to stay tuned. New episodes will drop soon, and you won't want to miss any of our instability.
For the latest updates, episode announcements, and exclusive sneak peeks, be sure to follow us on Instagram at fictionally_unstable. If you have any fictional content you'd like for us to dive into, please feel free to leave a comment on our Instagram.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow, like, and embrace the instability. Well, until next time.
Bye!
Bye.